What is up, guys? It's Doodoo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about how to play fish when we are the 3-bet pot in position pre-flop raiser. This is an important concept that we'll see on the river, but it also has concepts on every other street. So, in this hand, I have ace of diamonds, jack of hearts. I am in the big blind. My opponent is in the small blind. Now, in this hand, a fish limps in the hijack. Now my opponent, who is also a fish, raises in the small blind. Now here, we should be isolating with ace-jack off to play against the short stack fish. But we don't want to use huge sizing because we don't want to get jammed on. So you should use smaller sizing to isolate because our hand is not that strong. Now, if we had a hand like aces, kings, or ace-king that can get all in pre-flop, we would go bigger, but since we don't have that hand, we should go smaller. I'm going to show you some pre-flop MDA that illustrates this. So in the small blind, we see the fish are folding 37% to a 3-bet. GTO is 48 to 58%. So we know they're under folding, which means they're over calling. So here, exploitatively, we can go smaller with our ace-jack and go bigger with our aces. So I 3-bet to isolate, and he obliges and calls. Now, on the flop, we have to look at folding frequencies. Am I incentivized to c-bet flop? Let's take a peek at some data. We see here, field as 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop caller, small blind versus big blind, versus a small c-bet, they fold 28%. GTO is between 22 and 28. So you are incentivized to be more aggressive with your c-betting. So we go small, and my opponent calls. Now the turn is an 8 of diamonds. Now the turn is interesting. We have to look at MDA for double barrel fold frequencies. Am I incentivized to double barrel against a fish? Let's take a peek. So we see here, field as 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop caller, small blind versus big blind, check call 30, check fold, fish are over folding. GTO is 40 to 47% and fish are folding 50. But we have a hand that has showdown value because we beat hands like king jack and king 10. So we don't want to barrel this hand, but if we had a hand like king 10 of diamonds, we should barrel because there's an overfold. So what I do is I check back with my showdown value hands and I bet my high equity non-showdown value hands. So here I check back. My opponent now on the river, 5 of clubs comes, and my opponent bets 50% pot. So we have a decision to make. Should I fold, should I call, or should I raise? Well, let's take a peek at MDA for check call, check bet lines, field as 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop caller, small blind versus big blind. What do we see from the data? We know from the data that light green is bluffed with no pair. We know that dark green is bluffed with low pair, and we know that blue is GTO and NES is not enough sample. So we see here, over a big sample size, 55 weak is the bluffing frequency. GTO should be 25. So we know that they're over bluffing. So you could call here. The problem is it's also possible he has a hand like pocket 4s, pocket 5s. So I prefer raising. Now both calling and raising are fine. What is not fine is folding. So in game, he bets 50, I jam, and he folds. Now the caveat to this is if we know that the fish is bluffing merged, so if it was dark green instead of light green, we need to understand that we should not bluff because we see from MDA that they over defend. They call more than minimum defense frequency when they bet merged. Since he has too much air, your bluff will work because of the MDA principle. Any spot that is over bluffed is by definition over folded. But there's a caveat versus fish. That only works if they're bluffing too much air. If they're bluffing merged, then this principle does not apply. If they're bluffing merged, we see from MDA that they overcall. So they'll call you with 3rd and 4th pair. So against that range, we need to fold our ace high. Against the light green range, we need to bluff our ace high. So I thought this is a very cool hand that illustrates how to play pre-flop, how to play flop. We're incentivized to c-bet because they overfold a bit. We're incentivized to double barrel our high equity, no showdown value hands, bet 70 because there's an overfold. And on the river, in the check call, check bet line, we know that they bluff too much, so we can call or we can raise, and we should not fold. But if they're bluffing with a merge range, we should not bluff. All right, guys. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.